Опять бабахнуло. СНХЗ дымит.
In the embattled corridor around Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad, Ukrainian forces are mounting a determined defense against persistent Russian attempts to infiltrate and destabilize frontline positions. Assault troops of the 425th Regiment Skala, working alongside the 210th and 1st Assault Battalions, recently cleared the city council building in Pokrovsk, restoring the Ukrainian flag and reaffirming control over key institutional ground. This operation took place in carefully staged phases, aimed at flushing out embedded Russian forces. The deployment of reinforcements by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine signals the gravity of the situation around this vital logistics hub. In recent days, Ukrainian units have carried out strike and search operations to root out Russian reconnaissance and sabotage teams within Pokrovsk, while also reinforcing defensive flanks and securing supply routes. Over the past 24 hours alone, Ukrainian defense forces reported eliminating more than 24 Russian troops and damaging scores of enemy shelters in the area. Meanwhile, the Russian tactic of small group infiltration continues. Reports show that groups of roughly 200 troops have entered the city, exploiting gaps to dig in, set observation posts and fire positions, especially on the southern and eastern outskirts. Despite repeated claims from Moscow of encircling Ukraine's position in the Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad agglomeration, Ukrainian commanders insist that no full encirclement has occurred, and that supply and evacuation routes remain open. Major units, including airborne assault and mechanized brigades, have been repositioned to bolster weak sectors and ensure the hold. The fight has shifted into dense urban terrain and fringe industrial zones where infiltration and cross-city maneuvers are now daily realities. Every street corner, every block is contested. The outcome of this struggle matters not just for one city, but for control of the Donetsk logistics web. If the defense holds and infiltration attempts are fended off, Ukraine will have bought precious time and preserved a key supply node. If the city falls or is isolated, the ripple effect could be severe. We have more information about huge Ukrainian attack on several huge Russian targets overnight. Ukrainian strike drones attacked a Russian petrochemical plant in the city of Sterlitamak, Bashkortostan, again today. The Exilanova Plus Telegram channel published a video of the incident. Before the attack, local authorities had issued a warning about the threat of drone strikes in the region. People were advised to stay away from windows and avoid open areas. Off-camera, the video's author states that a drone struck the Sterlitamak petrochemical plant. The footage shows smoke rising from the plant's premises. This is the second strike on the plant in the last 3 days, with the previous one occurring on November 4th. At that time, local authorities reported damage to the water treatment facility at the Sterlitamak petrochemical plant, with partial destruction. The Sterlitamak petrochemical plant is located about 1,300 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. It specializes in the production of rubber, ionol, and aviation gasoline. The plant is part of the Russian chemical holding Roskym. The plant's products are used, among other things, in Russia's military industry. They've wrecked us, those damn kokols! Russians are reporting strikes on their strongpoint and bunkers with caponiers.
That's how it all happens. What kind of logs are there? They are lying around after the arrivals.
Here is the impact of a cluster munition.
Here it is.
What is left?
Here was a dugout, a shelter.
And here is another victim, Valera.
Shit.
Another one into the vehicle.
Those Ukrainians messed it up.
In Russia, a forum called Dialogue on Fakes 3.0 was held. Ironically, the main expert at the event was Maria Zakharova, who indeed knows quite a lot about spreading fakes. The forum's slogan, "We're against fakes," sounds about as convincing coming from her as the National Guard stands for freedom of speech or Russia stands for world peace.
We see a real, as I already said, a pandemic of fakes and disinformation that has engulfed the whole world. This is a man-made phenomenon, an intentional phenomenon. I mean fakes and the post-truth world. And the main generator of fakes, the inventor of the disinformation distribution system, is of course the Western world. Moreover, they are also the instigators of information wars. This fact is already confirmed by life itself, by the vast number of tragedies on planet Earth that have occurred precisely because of these very approaches and concepts.
The Kremlin tried to gather foreign journalists for a press tour to Kupiansk, Pokrovsk, and Mirnorod, supposedly to show Ukrainian troops surrounded. Out of 150 representatives of Western media, not a single one showed up. The rest simply ignored the invitation. No one wanted to take part in a provocation where the media's role would be to witness a staged scene and blame the Ukrainian armed forces for what the Russians themselves had done. South Africa is investigating the recruitment of its citizens for the war in Ukraine. The South African government has announced that it has received distress calls from 17 citizens who found themselves in occupied Donbass after joining a mercenary force, Reuters reported. The men, aged 20 to 39, were recruited under the pretext of high-paying contracts, the press service of President Cyril Ramaphosa said. The head of state ordered an investigation into the circumstances that led to the participation of South African citizens in mercenary activities, which is a crime under the laws of the country. According to government spokesman Vincent Magwenya, the South African authorities are working through diplomatic channels to ensure the return of their citizens. Most of the recruits, 16 people, are from the KwaZulu-Natal province, and one more is from the Eastern Cape. President Ramaphosa strongly condemns the exploitation of young people by structures linked to foreign militaries, the spokesman said. Experts emphasize that high unemployment, over 30%, makes South African youth vulnerable to such schemes. BBC previously reported that the Kremlin, through the African Corps, is trying to expand its influence in African countries by attracting men and women to work at Russian military enterprises. Journalists discovered that more than 1,000 women from Africa and South Asia were sent to Tatarstan, to the Alabuga Special Zone, where they work at a drone manufacturing plant. In September, the Kenyan police stopped an attempted human trafficking when more than 20 people were trying to send to Russia under the guise of employment. In fact, to participate in the war against Ukraine. Kenyan law enforcement officers recently detained Mikhail Lyapin, an employee of the Russian embassy, who, according to investigators, was recruiting locals to participate in the war against Ukraine. And this is interesting. The United States plans to deploy its military presence at an airbase near the Syrian capital, Damascus, reported Reuters. According to the media, this should help to conclude a security agreement between Syria and Israel, which is to be mediated by Donald Trump. The airbase is located at the entrance to parts of southern Syria that are expected to form a demilitarized zone under the future agreement. According to U.S. and Syrian officials, the United States plans to use the base to monitor compliance with the agreements between the parties. A U.S. administration official stated that the United States is constantly assessing the necessary presence in Syria to effectively combat ISIS, Islamic State, terrorists, and does not comment on the location or possible locations of troops. The official asked that the base's name and location be removed for operational security reasons. The U.S. military has conducted several reconnaissance missions to the air base over the past 2 months, including with a C-130 military transport aircraft. They concluded that the airfield's long runway was usable. Syrian military sources said that technical talks with the United States focused on the use of the base for logistics, surveillance, refueling, and humanitarian operations. At the same time, Syria would retain full sovereignty over the facility. It is not yet known when the U.S. military will be deployed to the base near the Syrian capital. On Monday, November 10th, Trump will meet with Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa at the White House, marking the first such visit by a Syrian head of state.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.